Welcome to our Play Well podcast series. My name is Marguerite Hunter Blair and I am Chief Executive of Play Scotland, the national organisation for play. Today we will look at how play can be used to support mental health and lead to better outcomes for all children. To explore this, we will be hearing from Professor Helen Dodd. Helen is a Professor of Child Psychology at University of Exeter. She holds a Future Leaders Fellowship, which funds a programme of work examining the relationship between children's play and mental health. She has specific expertise in child anxiety and the role of early risk factors in predicting anxiety over time in children. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Helen contributed to the Play First UK campaign for schools to prioritise children's play, wrote a number of articles and blogs about children's play during the pandemic, and worked on a digital archive of pandemic play. We will be hearing parts of a presentation given by Helen at the Play Council. Helen, where did your interest in play start from?
Until probably 2-3 years ago, I hadn't really ever thought about children's play in a lot of detail. I was interested in why some children develop anxiety disorders in particular, but mental health problems quite broadly, and thinking about, well, is there something we could be doing earlier in children's lives to try and stop them from getting to the point where they need to come in and see a therapist and have treatment for a mental health problem? It just seems to me that we're kind of failing children a little bit if our solution to mental health is treating the problem when it happens, rather than bringing children up in a world where they thrive and they are mentally healthy, rather than get to the point where they have problems. And I think kind of through becoming a parent myself and witnessing my children's play and the power that that play has for them, that definitely inspired me a little bit to be thinking about play, and just realising, as I said, that the answer can't be treatment. It has to be that we're doing something wrong if 1 in 10 children have a mental health problem. And so, I really want to think about what's the essence of childhood? What is the thing, when are children most happy? When are they most joyful? And that's when they're playing. So that's brought me to think about play. And I now am fortunate to have some funding from UKRI, which supports me. They pay my salary at the moment, for me to do work on bringing together that science of mental health with children's play.
And for you, what do you think free play is? And why is it so important?
So free play happens when children decide what they want to do, how they want to do it, when they want to start, when they want to stop, who they want to be involved. So it's entirely led by the children. Okay, you join in as an adult if you're invited to join in and that's part of their plan. But if it is not part of their plan, then you do not. You don't interfere, you just let them get on and play and do whatever they want to do. This type of play is really important to children for lots of reasons. One is that it's really enjoyable, right? Because it's the thing that they've chosen to do, so that it's likely to be something that they enjoy doing. Another is it increases their sense of control because it's led by them. They are controlling that play situation. So if you're working with children who are feeling a total lack of control, allowing them to play in that way allows them just to have a bit of control over part of their life in that moment. Whereas at the moment, children don't have a lot of control. They're told, schools are open, schools are closed, at home, you're not, whatever. And so allowing them to play freely just allows them to have a bit of control over something in their life. It can help them to make sense of things, help them to work out what's going on, what does it all mean. And again, if they've got things kind of on their minds and they're allowed to play freely, then they might use their play to help them try and work out what's going on. But if we structure that as adults, then what we're doing is taking the thing that we think is important and putting it on their play, because what they need is a space to express themselves and work out themselves what's going on. It gives them an opportunity to express themselves. If they're feeling angry, they might build something and break it down. There's nothing wrong with that. Expressing emotions is much better than keeping them inside. And it can also support relationships. So if a child is given that space to play freely and they invite you into that play space, and you play with them, but in a way that's led still by them, then that can be really powerful for that relationship, because the child can see that, you're respecting their ideas, you're allowing them to be in control of that particular situation, and that you're paying attention, your attention is on them, you're focused on them. So it can also be quite nice for sort of rebuilding relationships after some difficult times. If there's been a bit of an argument over homeschooling, for example, sitting down and having a nice play together afterwards can be a good way of sort of repairing that. So free play is really important, has lots and lots of benefits for children.
Helen, how do you think we prove or measure the impact of play to children's mental health and well-being?
Now, one of the difficulties with play and research is trying to evidence the benefits of play, because of course it would be totally unethical to deprive some children of playing and see what happens to them, right? And most children, if they're growing up in any kinds of relatively healthy environment, will be playing. So it's really difficult to capture, well, what are the benefits of that? Because all children are doing it. One of the ways that we can do it is by looking at situations where children's play is restricted. For example, if they're in hospital. So if a child has a long-term health condition, and that means that they're in hospital for a long time, or they've had an operation and they have to stay in for a long time afterwards, their play opportunities are obviously quite restricted. So we can look at what happens if we go into hospitals and we play with these children in terms of their stress and their negative emotion. And what that research shows is that play can decrease children's stress and decrease that negative emotion. So if we know that this happens when children are in hospital, we can assume that it also would happen when children are out of hospital. So play allows children a way of kind of expressing that stress and negative emotion and reducing it. So in these situations where things are a bit difficult for children, then play should be a priority for supporting them with, managing that stress and negative emotion.
Helen, you have young children of your own. What do you think the specific benefits are to outdoor play?
We also know that when children spend time outdoors, they have better mental health. So if play is good for mental health and being outdoors is good for mental health, then it follows that play outdoors is even better than play indoors. Okay. There's some research here, they showed particularly with girls that being outdoors is beneficial for their mental health. So play is great, play outdoors is even better. We also know that when we are in natural environments as adults and as children, then our markers of stress decrease. So things like our blood pressure, our heart rate, all go down when we're in nature. And I think probably most of the people who are listening to this can appreciate that. Think about a time when you were walking in the woods, or you were, out in big open space and you can see really, really far and you can't see any houses, all you can see is fields and trees, or you can see lakes and mountains. It makes us feel really good, doesn't it? Even now, if you take a minute to look out of your window and think, oh, look how pretty the sky looks, or look at the leaves flying around on the ground, that contact with nature just makes us feel good. Okay, it decreases those stress markers. And the same is true for children. So even looking at pictures of nature decreases our stress, but being in nature is even better. So play is good, outdoor play is good, and play in nature is even better. And we know when we kind of green play spaces, so when we make them more natural and increase children's exposure to nature in their play spaces, that encourages more complex and diverse ways of playing. It promotes longer duration of play, so children play for longer in natural spaces than in man-made spaces. It increases their physical activity and improves their attention. So, what's not to like here? So let's think about why. So what is it that happens when we're in nature that's so beneficial and that makes children feel good? The answer is there's lots and lots of different things that happen, and all of these processes working together give us these big benefits of being in nature. So it's things like most people see nature as unthreatening, so that reduces their stress compared to looking at Facebook or Twitter, which is full of things that are threatening in one way or another. It can support our attachment to place, or our sense of place, like this is where I belong, I love it here, I feel at home here. It can provide feelings of awe, like look how huge the world is, look how beautiful the world is, think how long these mountains have been here, what's happening with me right now feels tiny, so it can kind of help with that perspective.
And what about risk and play?
The other thing that happens when children are in nature is they play in more of an adventurous way. Okay, so they climb trees, they get muddy, they jump in puddles, they explore things, they lift up rocks and trees and see what's underneath. And this kind of adventurous play is something that I'm really interested in, where children are kind of playing at the edge of their comfort zone, when it's exciting, thrilling play, when they might experience a level of fear, but they've got that space to take some age-appropriate risks. It also allows them to learn about what we call physiological arousal, which is that, your heart's racing, you've got butterflies in your tummy, hands are a bit sweaty, you're a bit nervous, you're a bit unsure. And what's important is that children learn that that's a normal response thing that their body does when they're feeling a bit unsure. And it's not in itself anything to be scared of. So they interpret that realistically, like, oh, that's just because I'm a bit nervous about doing this thing. Rather than, oh my goodness, like something wrong with my heart, I'm going to have a heart attack, it's racing. So it just helps them to have that exposure. So I think adventurous play is particularly important. It can happen indoors, it can happen in man-made spaces, it doesn't have to be in nature. But nature really facilitates that type of play. But it can definitely happen, on playgrounds and other places as well.
Thank you for joining us on this podcast. Next time, we will be looking at play through the lens of active travel. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your preferred app and join the conversation by using the hashtag PlayWellPodcast. Find out more about Play Scotland by following us on Twitter @PlayScotland, and please visit our wonderful website, playscotland.org.